Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by the one and only Dina. Michael Cohen is still on a temporary leave until the Trump Manhattan criminal trial concludes, and it may conclude as early as next week, Dina, where the summation will take place on Tuesday after the long Memorial Day weekend. The jury's going to have the case on Tuesday. The media is not really talking about. How historic of a moment the jury in the Trump criminal case will begin deliberations on Tuesday. There can be a verdict as early as Tuesday. I think we'll find out if the jury is going to be still deliberating on Wednesday. Remember, courts normally dark on Wednesday, so Justice Merchan can handle other calendar items, but the jury may still deliberate on Wednesday. They may not. We'll find out more about that for sure on Tuesday. They'll deliberate all day Thursday. And I think by Friday, the latest, I think I would be surprised if it goes into the weekend. And if it goes into that following weekend, that means there may be a hung jury. There may be a holdout. Something will be happening if it's going that extra weekend. But we could have a verdict, Dina, as early as, Tuesday. But I think we'll have a verdict by the end of next week. And here's my prediction. I think you will either have a guilty verdict or a hung jury. I think it'll be a guilty verdict, but I don't believe there's any chance at all. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any chance at all that there will be an acquittal, that all of the jurors will acquit him. So I think that you'll either have a guilty verdict, or the best I think Trump can hope for is that maybe there was one juror who slipped on that will hang this jury, and that's what they're ultimately hoping for. And I think that if that was what they were hoping for that one, I don't know. It's hard for that to happen, Dina, when you had Robert Costello, the witness who the defense team called as their last witness, which kind of, if you were the prosecutor, what better witness would you want to end on than Robert Costello, who basically delivered this case to the jury with a nice bow, right? Because nice little ribbon and bow, because it tied everything together. It showed how in 2018, this MAGA lawyer, Robert Costello, tried to kind of worm his way into Michael Cohen's world so that he could be viewed as like a top MAGA lawyer, and that Donald Trump and Giuliani would like him, and it would lead to other MAGA business. This guy, Robert Costello, pretended to be Cohen's friend and to care about Cohen. But behind the scenes, we saw all of these emails of him calling Cohen an a-hole, saying how could we keep Cohen under control for Donald Trump? Him also talking in like mafia code to Cohen, like, you've got friends in high places. What code should I deliver, to the boss? And it just made it very clear that this was something that Donald Trump was trying to cover up, the hush money payments. Why else? Like, Costello was like the Rosetta Stone of the case. He was actually like the missing link. I was thinking, was it a bad thing that you didn't have Weisselberg testify? Weisselberg's in Rikers Island. He pled guilty to another felony recently for perjury, for the false testimony he gave into the civil fraud case. But then they put up Costello. You couldn't ask for a worse witness for the defense. So I just also think, Dina, these historic implications that Tuesday the jury's going to be deliberating, and it's like silence from the other corporate media, silence. And you made the best point. Like, yeah, the American people are going to be shocked when and if there's a guilty verdict, because corporate media has covered this disastrously. What do you think, Dina? Welcome.
Absolutely.
I love hosting these shows with you.
Oh my gosh, I love this too. As much as we missed Michael, as you said, I love getting to sit in for him. Yeah, the analysis has been way too nuanced. Like you said, Costello itself, and this, you have friends in high places. That's not something you say if you don't care if somebody cooperates. If you're not hiding something, like you said, you're not going to care if somebody cooperates. That and the recording, I keep going back to the recording. I'll be interested to see if the prosecution plays that during their closing, because it's Donald Trump himself. And when he's talking about that payment to Karen McDougal, he says, can we pay in cash? You don't pay something in cash if you don't care if it gets traced. The judge is going to tell them, the jury, that they can use their common sense. You have to suspend all common sense to think this man who wants to pay this other person off in cash, and this lawyer that's telling him, I'm so glad you're cooperating, you have friends in high places. It's clearly this cover up, this scheme to hide it. And then also, again, the opening statements, I keep going back to that, but the jury, they heard those opening statements, and that is your chance to introduce yourself and your client, your case to the jury. You better back up everything you said in that opening statement. Otherwise, your entire credibility of your case is gone. He mentions in opening the defense that Trump is a family guy 4 times. I counted it. Not once during the case did they draw out anything showing that that was true. Lack of family showing up in the galley doesn't show it either. And then also in the opening, he talks about how they just didn't make this $35,000 payment, which the evidence clearly showed otherwise. You have the notation on that bank statement showing how they are doubling the payment. You have the tweet from Donald Trump himself acknowledging the payment as a reimbursement. There is no evidence that shows that that payment didn't happen. So their opening in that defense, I think they lost their credibility because their case didn't back that up at all. And then, as to your point, to have the one defense expert be Robert Costello, who did the one thing that the defense was trying to egg Michael Cohen onto. They were trying to make Michael Cohen get angry on the stand, and he didn't. He kept his cool. He remained professional and articulate. And the person who lost his cool was the defense one, who was really disrespectful to the judge, which I think looks really bad to the jury. And it reinforced, like you said, this mafia style thing. They're trying to make the payment cash. They're trying to keep him quiet. You don't do that if this is a retainer agreement, if this is some valid situation. You do that if there's a cover up. And that's what, the part of the jury instructions, we haven't fully seen them yet. They're still under, the judge is still working through that. But we got a glimmer of it on Tuesday that it sounds like the judge is going to allow their jury to decide which of the unlawful means it is, which was a huge win for the prosecution, because they don't have to say that he intended to conceal a specific crime. It's just one of those 3 object crimes: the federal election laws, the tax fraud, and the New York election laws. And I think that all of that evidence showing they were covering something up shows the illegality of it, shows this intent to have this unlawful means. You're trying to conceal these unlawful means, and the jury doesn't have to agree on which of those unlawful means. So yeah, you would have to completely suspend your common sense as a juror to not think that they put the retainer down on those ledgers instead of reimbursement because they were trying to hide something illegal.
Right. During opening, the defense lawyers tried to make it seem like, look, Cohen was the lawyer and these payments were just normal retainer payments that were made for legitimate legal services. Cohen performed all of these various legal services, that these were not reimbursements that were falsified as legal expenses, that these were actually legal expenses. And they never fleshed that out at all. Throughout that, they then tried to attack Cohen to make it seem like they were that Cohen went rogue and that Cohen was behaving badly. But how does that help them? Even if they were trying to show that Cohen went rogue, they argued during the opening statement, or they claimed during the opening statement, that these were legitimate expenses. So why would you pay somebody that money if you're now claiming that they went rogue? So it was this very kind of incongruous, it was all over the place. There was no theme. And basically where they were going, basically their point was, don't believe anyone. Donald Trump's not going to testify, but don't believe anybody here. But the one person maybe you should believe is this Robert Costello guy, who, unlike Cohen, where Cohen has been consistent over all of these years, and Cohen, like, this whole thing about the $30,000 extra that Cohen took from the Trump organization for that Red Finch payment, where the media was like, oh my God, Cohen stole the money. It's in Cohen's book. It wasn't like Trump's lawyers, had to like look through and find it. It was in the book. Cohen talks about that. That was part of him being honest about the past. Then you had Robert Costello testify, look, I did not care about Donald Trump at all. My focus was 100% on Michael Cohen's interest. Okay, well, let me show you this email. Let me show you that email. Let me show you this email. Screw Cohen. Cohen's the worst. Screw him. How can we help the big guy? We need to help Donald Trump. What can we do for Donald Trump? And that's what the jury's saying. Cohen testified, Dina, for 21 hours. Imagine anybody, just those watching at home, think about testifying for 21 hours over a 2-week period. And then there was one moment that lasted 45 seconds, which, by the way, the objections to the questioning was sustained about this October 24th, 2016 phone call where Cohen said he spoke to Trump to confirm the payments to Stormy Daniels. But then the defense attorney said, but also, were you talking about this 14-year-old boy? Because it says in these text messages on the same day that you were talking about this 14-year-old boy who was threatening you in the Trump campaign. And Cohen said, yeah, I think that it could be about both topics. And then Trump's lawyer goes, well, you lie. You're a liar. You're a liar. Objections sustained. You're a liar, aren't you? No, it's quite possible. I had multiple conversations with him about this. By the way, Dina, Trump then made the payment. When the media was trying to go after Cohen, we know what happens. What happens is Trump then makes the payment. So how did it work? Trump's like, oh, it looks like you want me to pay $130,000 for a porn star that I've never met before, and you want me to gross it up? Sure, let me just pay porn stars who I've never had interactions with. Of course. What do you think was leading up to it? We have other contemporaneous records from the time period, from Allen Weisselberg, from Donald Trump's controller, Jeff McConney, saying, gross it up. Here's how we're gonna do the scheme. And Dina, all the prosecution has to show is that Donald Trump put in motion or caused this to happen. Trump himself doesn't have to be the one who went into, time slips or whatever it is and actually falsified on QuickBooks, that is, and make the entry. No, as long as Trump put it in motion, and that's been shown clearly beyond a reasonable doubt. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. And I actually think it was a kind of a backfire from the defense to draw out, like you said, the $30,000 that Michael Cohen said, he took because he was going to get less on his bonus that Trump promised, and how that fact was already out in his book and all that kind of stuff. But I think it backfires because we have Hope Hicks on the stand, who says Trump told her that Stormy Daniels paid this amount out of the goodness of his heart. And then we have the prosecution asking Michael Cohen, would you pay $130,000 to Stormy Daniels if you didn't think you were going to get the money back? And he was like, no. And then you have the defense draw out this fact that he felt so upset that he wasn't getting paid his bonus that he was taking the $30,000 to make himself whole. So you can just so neatly wrap that up as a prosecution in closing and say, do you really believe that Michael Cohen would just have paid $130,000 out of his own pocket, not thinking he was going to get reimbursed? This person was the one that was so upset of not getting his full bonus that he did the $30,000. Like, no, the answer is no. And I think that just kind of reinforces this idea, to your point. One, Michael Cohen wasn't going to pay this huge amount just out of the goodness of his heart for no reason. And two, there was a lot of things that came out in that book that Donald Trump wouldn't have been willing to reimbursement that payment and double it up. That wasn't the kind of business that Donald Trump ran. He wanted to back away from invoices and not pay people's invoices. So he did it because he agreed to it. And to your other point about the fact of that 90-second phone call about it being whether, they were trying to say it was just about the 14-year-old and not also about the Stormy Daniels call. Well, the one phone call that we actually have recorded between Donald Trump and Michael Cohen with the Karen McDougal payment only lasted 47 seconds. So they could easily bring that out in prosecution also, because that's part of the evidence. It's already been played twice to the jury. Hey, why not? Why couldn't they have had two conversations? They weren't talking a long time about even the Karen McDougal one, and that one happened first. You would think by the time they were getting to Stormy Daniels, it'd be much quicker phone call. It's like, hey, okay, this is it again. We're going to do it. Yeah, okay. I mean, that can last maybe 15 seconds.
Trump made the reimbursement payments. Like, he signed the checks.
Right.
So we know he did that. He was giving this money grossed up to Cohen for something, right? And in the opening, Trump's lawyer said it was for legitimate legal services and has nothing to do with anything. Cohen was a lawyer, he was paid, and this is how Cohen is just being paid for services that he's under retainer for. They never talked about that in the defense case ever. I mean, there was maybe 10 minutes of questioning of Cohen about some of the other work that he did. If I was doing the cross of Cohen, the majority of my time would have been spent on the meat of the case. If that was what your defense was going to be, why are you focused on all of this other crap? Why wouldn't you just go through all of the time slips and the billable entries? And for those saying, oh, Ben, don't give away, the case is done, okay? They can't argue this now on closing because they didn't introduce any evidence. And in fact, if they were to argue this now, it would end up worse for them. This was not what they were saying during the, but to me, they focused on all the wrong things. Then even when Stormy was testifying, they talked about, they were asking questions like, so did it look like Donald Trump was a good golfer? Did it look like he had a lot of friends there? Like, you could tell Donald Trump was giving them these questions to ask. But I just go back to the simplest explanation. We know that Trump paid Michael Cohen. When the numbers add up, when you add Red Finch plus the reimbursement for Stormy and you gross those numbers up together, you get the amount that Cohen was paid. Exactly. And there has to be, if you're the defense, some alternative explanation if you want to cast reasonable doubt in a records case, in a falsifying business records case, and they provided zero. That's why, to me, the prosecution not only proved beyond a reasonable doubt, but I think the prosecution showed like beyond any scintilla or if there was even a higher standard, the prosecution showed that. And all the media was focused. And this is what frustrates me on media narratives, things that Cohen wrote about in his book 4 years ago. And it's just like, are you even like, have you prepared? have you done any preparation, media, when you cover this? Or do you just kind of show up? Because this is what it seems like they do. It seems like they show up. They have to all figure out, okay, what's the drama that we're going to create today? What's the sound bite that we're going for? Oh, let's push that so we can make it a horse race here and there. And then that's what they pushed. And, we're so lucky to have legal analysts like you and Karen Friedman-Agnifilo and Michael Popak and a bunch of the other legal analysts here who go through all of that. When we get back, Dina, I want to talk about Trump's decision not to testify. He gave an interview on New York's WABC where he explained why it was actually just a bunch of gibberish, but why he didn't testify. I want to play that for you and also talk about some other developments. But let's take our first quick break of the show.
A small regret is slouching in the dentist chair thinking, I should have brushed and flossed better. A big health regret is listening to your doctor and thinking, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Better health today and when it matters most is why I take Field of Greens. Field of Greens is unlike any fruit and vegetable or green product. Field of Greens isn't watered down extracts. Field of Greens is an organic superfood. It's whole fruits and vegetables. Each fruit and vegetable was selected by doctors to support vital body functions like heart, liver, kidneys, metabolism, and the immune system. And only Field of Greens is backed by a better health promise. At your next checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Don't look back and say, I should have paid attention to nutrition when I was younger. Field of Greens is key to better health today and when it matters most. Let's get you started with 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code BEAT. That's promo code BEAT at fieldofgreens.com.
Did you know that your temperature at night can have one of the greatest impacts on your sleep quality? Look, I know about sleep quality because I'm sleep deprived. But if you wake up too hot or too cold, I highly recommend that you check out Miracle Made's bed sheets. It's inspired by NASA. Miracle Made uses silver-infused fabrics and makes temperature-regulating bedding so that you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and they're designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long so you get better sleep every night. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. I mean, no more gross odors. You see, Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. And they feel as nice, if not nicer than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and worse, acne. So sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/beat and try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo BEAT, that's BEAT at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, well, you'll get a full refund. So upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/beat and use the code BEAT to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/beat to treat yourself. And thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
There he is. There's the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Cohen right there. We still get him for that nice ad read. We're back on Political Beatdown, Ben Meiselas with Dina Dahl. Dina, where we last left off, I said that we were going to discuss what Donald Trump said on this WABC interview about why he decided that he was not going to testify. You and I and everybody, I think, knew that he was not going to testify. This is what he does. He's so predictable. I wish he wasn't this predictable. It would be less embarrassing for our country if he was actually strong and his tactics and the Republican tactics were smart. At least I'd be like to all our international viewers, I'd be like, look, they're really strong and they're really smart. What do you want us to do? These are really smart people. I'm joking, but it at least would be a less embarrassing for us how predictable and easy it is to call it. Less frustrating when corporate media doesn't call it out. The same way we know he's not going to debate President Biden. He's going to come up with the excuse President Biden didn't get drug tested, this, that, or he will make up an excuse. He ain't debating. He's scared and he's weak. But here's what he said to this right-wing radio station about why he decided not to testify. Let's see if you even understand the actual words that he's saying, Dina. Let's play the clip.
Mr. President, in the New York City trial, your defense rested its case without you taking the stand. You said you would absolutely testify. Why did you decide ultimately not to take the stand? Was that a hard decision for you?
Yeah, because he made rulings that makes it very difficult to testify. Anything I did in the past, they can bring everything up. And you know what? I've had a great past, but anything. But the other thing is, and the main reason, and I don't even mind that. In fact, I like talking about it because we had rigged cases. New York is out of control, and they can solve it with a good appellate. We won in the Engoron case. He doesn't know anything about what he's doing, and he's totally corrupt. That's a different case. We had that overturned. We had decisions overturned 5 times. I think it's a record.
They didn't win in the Justice Engoron, New York Attorney General civil fraud case. I don't even know what he was saying. I don't even know if those were sentences. Dina, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I think only those of us who are following very closely can kind of even try to read between the lines. I mean, he's not right about it being overturned so much, Justice Engoron, and his thing of things can be used against me. I mean, this is his victim mentality. He's being treated like any other criminal defendant, and certain things can be used against you. The judge, Judge Merchan, disallowed a lot of what the prosecution wanted to use for impeachment purposes. If you're going to be on the stand and take an oath and say that you're going to tell the truth, the other side should be able to impeach you to try to show why you're not credible. That happens to every witness, and they wanted to be able to use a lot. He's done a lot that shows he's not credible. And he really limited it. One of the things they could have used was his judgment in the E. Jean Carroll case, because that specifically had to do with a lie. He lied about her. He lost that defamation case. He lied about her. And that can really help the jury decide whether or not he's lying or not on the stand. That's the whole point, to help give the jury more information on how to evaluate the witness. So the judge, Merchan, actually was quite limited on what he can use. But the fact is, guess what, Donald Trump? Actions have consequences. If you hadn't lied about E. Jean Carroll multiple times, you wouldn't have had that used against you if you wanted to testify in your criminal trial. Like, I love the fact that our justice system is finally taking him to task in a way that our political system never did. But in our justice system, a judgment against you in a defamation suit, that's going to be used against you if you testify in your criminal trial. Like, that's just because that's going to happen with any criminal defendant, and you're not special, Donald. It's going to happen to you. And I love that this person who seems to get away with so much at least didn't get away with it all in the process of how this trial has played out.
It's why our justice system is so precious. It's why we created the Midas Touch Network. It's why we care about law and order. It's why Donald Trump and his MAGA red tie brigade minions attack the judge, attack the judge's family, attack the prosecutors. Everything is rigged. He doesn't deny the underlying allegations. He just, everything is rigged against me. It's unfair. This is coming from Biden and the White House. The same way he's delegitimized our politics. I mean, don't get me wrong, politics was always rough and tumble, but now our politics is a complete clown show based on what the MAGA Republicans have done to it. He's destroyed the ability of the fourth estate, the media, to do anything. Fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news, fake news, such that the news is like, oh, I guess we have to both sides the coverage, and I guess we have to be nice to him to show that we're not fake news. We have to make sure we go out of our way to platform his lies, because we don't want to be accused of fake news. We don't want him to file a frivolous lawsuit. We don't want him to tweet or post something on Trump Social or Truth Social about us. And now he goes to one of our most sacred institutions, our judicial branch. And just, he has, even when he puts these jokers like Alina Habba, yeah, she's an idiot and she's the worst and she says the dumbest things ever. But having someone like that become the face of our justice system for the Republican Party makes it extra embarrassing to us, right? It's just a weapon of embarrassment. right? It's a nuclear bomb of embarrassment for us to have these clownish figures, and no offense to clowns, these wannabe cosplay fascists up there just whining, behaving like petulant little babies. And I'm sitting there and you're sitting there, and people with law degrees and people with not with law degrees, but people who are serious adults are looking at this behavior, and we're like, y'all are wearing Trump ties? Like, the MAGA Republican Congress members, they show up with ties with Donald Trump's face on it. They're going to Trump events. Dina, they're wearing diapers. I'm not making this up. This is fact check true at Snopes. They go to these events wearing diapers. Real men wear diapers. I think we have that photo. They wear these ridiculous, real men wear diapers because they want to show that they're with Donald Trump. And when people accuse Trump of wearing diapers, they wear diapers. They got these pee funnels where they pee on the floor. And don't get me wrong, I understand people have used pee funnels when they go to like concerts and events. So I'm not trying to like say negative things about it, but like they should be porta potties at this. So between the diapers and they're peeing on the floor while Trump's speaking, and they're wearing Trump ties, and they've taken away our national anthem and they sing the Trump anthem now, the J6 anthem. I'm watching all of this, Dina, and I'm just like, what the hell has happened to our country? Look, this is from our research team. This person pulled down her pants at the New Jersey event to show off her Trump P-word grabbing themed tattoo. And right by her, you know what? She has Trump, and then she has an arrow towards it. I'm just at a loss. This is not normal. This is not normal politics. And it's intended to just make us look like fools. And Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un and Iran, they're just laughing at this nation that people looked up to across the world for our democracy. And we had a lot of flaws, don't get me wrong, but we are an absolute embarrassment right now because of him. And it's sad. It's really sad. And I just wish that corporate media would just, rather than reporting on the next poll, here's a poll, let's spend the week talking about the poll. Here's another poll, let's spend the week talking about the poll. Here's another poll, let's spend the week talking about the polls. And let's only focus on the polls where Trump's ahead, not the fact that if you actually look at the averages, Biden's up in a bunch of polls, Trump's up in a bunch of polls. But let's just focus on the ones that Trump's up. Then let's spew out Trump's rally size numbers and just lie for him and say that, 80,000. We'll defer to what Trump's people tell us, so we could push out those false narratives. I wish they would just talk about, here's what's going on in our country. Do the news. Report on actually what is happening. And anyway, I guess that's why people are shutting down the media and they're watching us and they're subscribed to our network, because they ain't doing it anymore.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, even Fox was the worst, but even CNN, they played so many of Trump's press conferences before, after the trial, where he was just completely lying. Like, we have to stop being a platform for him. And those images that you showed, that cult-like celebration of somebody who is so outrageous, that always existed in our country. But that was a fringe person. That was a fringe party, a person, third party, or some party that was not very well known. The real problem is that he has the nomination for one of our major parties. And I think it really shows as the dysfunction of the Republican Party, even more so than the dysfunction of our country. And that might be optimism thinking on my part, but I have to be optimistic. Otherwise, everything can seem kind of depressing. But because the fact is he is not a winner, right? He's not a winner. He's never won the popular vote. He won by a few thousand votes, the electoral count, the first time around, and then has never won since then. In the 2022 primaries, the people he endorsed, didn't win for the most part. Now he basically endorses people who don't even have a primary challenger because he's afraid of what that's going to look like. He is a fringe candidate. He really is a fringe candidate. He has lost voters, right? I mean, I don't even have to be like a statistical analysis person to know he has lost voters since 2020 because he has offended even more groups of people. You don't gain voters that way. You lose voters, right? He has lost so many voters. But the fact is that because he has this, the Republican Party is unwilling to stand up to him. I mean, even the fact that Nikki Haley endorsed him yesterday after all that she said shows how much they care about their own personal to be frank, short-term gain, because I don't think that's going to help her in the long term, but they care about their personal short-term gain more than any long-term good for the party or for themselves. They're willing to hold on to him. The scary part is when the media amplifies polls like that, or normalize Trump, or unwilling to report with how audacious so many of his things are. A lot of people will just maybe not vote at all. And I think that's the biggest risk to Biden, and the biggest risk of getting Trump elected is not more people voting for Trump, but people just not voting at all because the media makes it seem like, oh, both sides have like equal dysfunction or lukewarm support, and people, because to be honest, like I've worked on a lot of campaigns. It's really hard to get somebody to turn out to the polls. People are busy, they have jobs, they have families, even putting in a mail-in ballot, like the ballots are long and people get confused about the different propositions and the local ballots. And sometimes they just don't do it. Getting somebody to actually vote is difficult, and you have to make people feel like it matters. And when the media makes it seem like it doesn't matter, or Trump is already winning, so what's the point of you voting? I think that's how Trump gets elected, not because he's adding to his coalition in any way, shape, or form. It's just this unwillingness. I know Trump has done so many things that it's easy to not treat each one like a 5-alarm fire that it is. But they do. I mean, here's an example is the immigration bill, right? The Senate came up with this bipartisan immigration bill. Trump said to the House, don't do it because I want to campaign on it. So the House didn't take it up. And then we just heard nothing about it. Like he suffered zero political consequences from that because Trump did another crazy thing. And the problem is he does so many crazy things. It's difficult to hold him to account for all of them.
In the past, 10 days, he called on the late, great Hannibal Lecter. He called for a unified Reich in one of his campaign videos, then blamed it on a lower level staffer. He said he's looking into a policy that would prohibit birth control. He bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade. The last three things I talked about happened over the last 3 days, last 4 days. Unified Reich. Saying that he would we're seriously going to look into a policy that's going to powerfully address, you're going to like my policy about birth control. That's what he said. And then he goes, I'm absolutely not going to do anything about birth control. But you said it. You said in an interview that you're very powerfully looking into it, is what you said. And then bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade. I mean, you remember the days Dan Quayle spelled potato wrong. That was it. That was basically the end of him. Howard Dean went, woohoo, and that was viewed as this super weird moment, and I like Howard, but that's what it was viewed as, at the time. People focused on John Kerry windsurfing, right? I mean, there were all of these moments, and this guy is calling for a unified Reich, and he's used language that echoes Hitler before, and yet he's normalized. This is the Republican Party, and by Meiselas calling out that behavior, that makes us far left, or you're a lefty because you're calling that out. Well, Trump's behavior ain't conservative. It's wannabe fascism. It ain't conservative. What is it? He doesn't want to conserve our institutions. They want to tear down all of our institutions. Project 2025 is quite literally all about tearing down our institutions, tearing down the federal government, and making Donald Trump a king. Donald Trump says he wants to be a dictator. He says, I want to be a dictator on day one. Those are his words. And yet the media doesn't cover it at all. They don't cover it. Maybe for a day. Oh, he said it. But look, he ain't going to debate because in a debate, everyone's going to get to watch. The MAGAs, they basically make you believe that President Biden is unable to even speak and walk, which are actually the qualities of Donald Trump. So they make Donald Trump feel all powerful, and then they project what he's really going through cognitively on Biden. Biden does fine in debates like he did in 2020. He'll be fine. Biden's not going to be as good as he was if he was debating 20 years ago, let's face it, but Biden will do fine, and he'll talk about democracy, and he'll talk about protecting women's reproductive rights. Donald Trump will go from, remember in the last debate, Proud Boys, stand back, stand by, and now he's created a new national anthem with the Proud Boys and the J6ers. So, and then it's just like the verdict, Dina, when the verdict happens, and if and when Donald Trump's, people are going to be like, what? And the same thing with the debate. People are going to be like, wait, whoa, Trump's cognitively this and Biden's better than I thought he was. It's because, that's always been the case. If we just watched what's happening, y'all would see that that's just the reality of that's following the facts, not these bogus narratives. In any event, let's take our last quick break of the show, and then you and I still have a lot more to discuss.
Warmer, sunnier days are calling. It's time to fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. And keep the kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning. Just head to factormeals.com/beatdown50 and use code beatdown50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month. That's code beatdown50 at factormeals.com/beatdown50 to get 50% off your first box, plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
Welcome back. I want to thank our pro-democracy sponsors right there. The discount codes are in the description below. That's one of the way we help fund this network is through those pro-democracy sponsors. And my younger brother, Jordy, spends a lot of time picking these sponsors. He rejects a bunch of the sponsors that don't fit our audience. And so we do spend a lot of time testing the products and trying them out. And I want to give them thanks because it's not a foregone conclusion that there will be products and services that fund pro-democracy media like this. Dina, you mentioned before, after Donald Trump, disparaged Nikki Haley, mocked her husband, called her horrible, misogynistic names. At the end of the day, that apparently works in the Republican Party. Say horrifically misogynistic things, attack the spouse. I mean, look, if maybe I could understand it a little more if you'd be like, I don't know, I'm not going to endorse your opponent, but I'm not going to endorse the person who attacked my wife and my family and attacked me and called me all of these horrible names and lied about me. I mean, personally, I would always endorse the pro-democracy candidate regardless, but I could at least understand if she would be like, all right, look, I can't support this guy. I mean, for what he said about my husband, for what he said about me as a woman. I mean, these were not normal political criticisms. These were hateful, misogynistic, disgusting things. And then she says the reason that she's going to support him is because of his foreign policy. She says that's the reason that quite literally he's going to pull us out of NATO. I mean, that's what he says. He says, I'm going to pull the United States out of NATO. He says that NATO is archaic. We need to rethink it. His deal between Russia and Ukraine would be Ukraine losing and not providing Ukraine. that's the aspect of him that you, I mean, there's really no aspect that you'd like, but that's like, of all of the things, that's like, that's like the craziest one. But remember, Ted Cruz, and we've seen this in the criminal trial, how Donald Trump worked with the National Enquirer, with David Pecker, to make knowingly defamatory articles to push out these lies about Ted Cruz and others. Just made it up. So Donald Trump was having affairs. What did the National Enquirer say? Ted Cruz affairs with all of these women, right? That's what they said every day. A new woman's coming forward about Ted Cruz. It's always projection. It was the exact things that Trump was involved in. I don't know, maybe Donald Trump's dad killed JFK because he also accused Ted Cruz of that. But here was Ted Cruz last night on CNN. I want to get your reaction to it. And just watch this guy. I mean, this is like, again, this behavior is just such a loser. Here, play this clip.
11 senators joined me.
Senator, with all due respect, after it had been thrown out of many courts, after the Attorney General Bill Barr, because there was no basis for those court cases.
No, so that's actually
Senator,
not.
with all due respect,
you asked me a question. Do you want me to answer it?
And you didn't answer the question.
Yes, I
did. Dozens of
did.
court cases were thrown out.
Hold on a
The Attorney
second.
General said there was no widespread fraud. You're not clearly answering the question. I want to thank you for that.
What question am I not? I'm answering every question. I think the country would have been a lot better off with a determination of what evidence of voter fraud there was that occurred, and instead the media didn't want to hear it and insists voter fraud never occurs. You ought to go back and look at the Carter Baker Commission.
It was the Attorney General, and my question was about
it was the media. It was CNN that relentlessly pushed that propaganda. And by the way,
what
never
propaganda?
That
there was no widespread fraud in the election?
That voter fraud doesn't exist, and anyone who says it does is wearing a tinfoil hat. That is propaganda. And by the way, you never asked Hillary Clinton this. You never asked Stacey Abrams this. You never asked Al Gore this.
With all due respect,
and every
Senator,
one of them said the Republicans who won were illegitimate.
I haven't had any of them on my show. We'll talk to them, but I don't remember.
What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there. I mean, like you said, he completely debases himself by still supporting Donald Trump after all that. But I think it's so irresponsible, speaking about lawyers, like he's a lawyer also, graduated from a great school. He's intelligent enough to know that there was not any kind of widespread voter fraud. I think in Georgia, they found maybe like 6 or 7 people total that had actually fraudulently voted. And usually the media says that. They'll say like there wasn't any material or anything to sway it. The fact is the courts dismiss these lawsuits. I mean, Donald Trump tried. He tried in a lot of courts to say that the votes were fraudulent and to throw them out, and they didn't have any evidence to back it up. A lot of the lawyers have since gotten in trouble for making false statements to those judges, and the Supreme Court declined to take the case because there wasn't any evidence and there wasn't any reason to reopen these cases. We're not talking about Donald Trump saying one thing, the media saying something. We're talking about the Donald Trump saying something in a court of law where you have to actually prove things with evidence and him not having the evidence. And that should be settled enough for a lawyer like Ted Cruz. It should be settled enough for an elected official of his stature. Donald Trump had his day in court, a lot of days in court in a lot of different jurisdictions, and wasn't able to show and prove any of it. And that should be the end of the conversation. So for him to still be peddling this so many years later, I cannot wait for the day when this country finally takes into account truly the harm not only Donald Trump, but so many of our politicians have done with what they did to 2020. And it may not be tomorrow. It may not be next year. But I do believe that this is not going to go well for them. And that's why we have to keep doing these shows. You have to keep doing your network, Ben, because truth does matter. And the bigger the community hears the truth, this is how we take people to account right now, to eventually take them into, having even a bigger consequence. But if we stop talking about it, they're going to keep doing it.
2020 wasn't even close. It wasn't a close election. It was a blowout. Yeah, there was a state like Georgia where Biden won by 11,700, find me the votes, whatever the number was, but by and large, from an electoral college standpoint, was a blowout. By a popular vote standpoint, it was a blowout. This wasn't Bush v. Gore. That was one state that involved hanging Chads and 433 hanging Chads, and were they, should they be counted or not counted? It was not close. It was not close. And that's one of the things, as you reflect upon it and you hear people like Ted Cruz and others, and you're left with the conclusion, or you come to the conclusion very quickly, that one of the two major American political parties is done with democracy. And they've looked at what Vladimir Putin's doing in Russia, and they look at what President Xi's doing in China, and they looked at, what Saddam Hussein did in Iraq. They looked at that template, and the Republican Party says that as this, beautiful, diverse melting pot that is America develops, they are unable to compete anymore. That they need to do things, not play by the rules, and play a different game, while Democrats and the pro-democracy community is focused on democracy. And when you think about like a game, it's like, what if we're talking about soccer, or for those international football? And Democrats are playing one game where they're, dribbling the ball with their feet and you can't touch it with their hands. And on the other side, the Republicans are walking around like shooting you and taking their hands. And Democrats are like, I'm going to go pass the ball. And Republicans are out there like, picking it up with their hands, throwing it, and they're playing a whole different game. They're not playing the system that was what was so admirable, but also so difficult about our country. And when international observers, I think, would look at our country that was built on all of these kind of norms, it may be hard for them to understand how it was held together on the Constitution's not all that long. When you look at these amendments that have all of this lofty meaning, sometimes they're just a sentence or a few words. And so international observers, how are you holding this together? And how do these systems work based on conventions and norms and just historical patterns of dealing? Well, in Donald Trump's past, a contract never mattered to him, right? Throw it out, rip it up. The ultimate contract is our United States Constitution, right? And it's built on good faith. A lot of our systems are built on a good faith belief, on full faith and credit. I mean, you know that expression, full faith and credit in the system, good faith. And so the moment an entire political party no longer acts with full faith, with good faith, and they act in bad faith, and they tear it down. And then you've got Democrats talking about, okay, well, look what we did. Oh, we did the infrastructure and the Inflation Reduction Act. And then the MAGA Republicans go, look what we brought you. Look at the new bridge, even though they voted against it, And Democrats are like, you voted against it, and they don't give a shit. Excuse my language. They don't care. They're like, okay, yeah, it's ours now. We did it. I did it. Hey, look what we brought you. And I think that needs to be discussed more and more, is that the good faith that is imbued in our Constitution has been torn to shreds by a political party that's used the template that Donald Trump has dealt with contracts his entire life, and he's ripped it apart. And this election is for the survival of our Constitution. It is. That's the stakes, Dina. I'll give you the final word on the show.
Gosh, so much there. I mean, I agree. I mean, not only some of it was the contract, but it was just this expectation that people were going to do the right thing. They never expected somebody like Donald Trump. It wasn't in the initial Constitution that a president was only going to serve 2 terms. George Washington just didn't want it to become a king. There was this expectation that people who was going to come into public service were going to do it for the good of the people. Donald Trump, to me, and I think I know a lot of people, when that night, election night, 2020, when he sat in the White House and did that speech with like a wallpaper of flags, and declare that they had already won when the counting was far from over. I mean, to me, it felt like, let's timestamp it, like the end of our democracy, because to do it in the White House, that power he had, we gave him that power. That's not his house. It's not his flag. We gave him that power, and he abused that power and was taking that power for himself. He told us, all of us, and he never stopped that story. And we need to do so much more to hold him to account than we have so far, because he's already saying, him and frankly, so many other of them, right? Senator Rubio the other day said, I'm not going to say it's fair. We haven't even started voting. That the scary part is that Donald Trump, even if he loses, which we hope he loses for the sake of our democracy, is going to do it all over again. And it's probably going to do something worse. Are we even prepared? Are we even talking about that? I think we're not even close to talking about it. And so there's so much we have to do between now, frankly, and January, not only to try to get Biden elected, but to stop Trump from declaring that he won all over again. Him and everybody behind him, they liked how it went the first time around in 2020. I can't imagine why, but Senator Ted Cruz, he liked it. He's still talking about it. What's that version, that second version that they're coming up with? So I know you're going to be talking about it, Ben. I am looking forward to you talking about it and talking about it with you. But I think it's a two-pronged thing. One, not have him be elected, and two, what are we going to do when he yet again says that our elections are not fair?
Well, we're going to be talking about it for sure. We'll probably still do a show with you and I on Tuesday, because I don't believe we'll have a verdict then. Likely we'll do the Political Beatdown show with you and I on Thursday. And then, just for everybody out there, Dina and I are in discussions right now for launching the Dina show. And we're just putting the final touches on it for when the Dina show launches. How early is it? What time? How long? Co-hosts. And so we're discussing that. And yes, there will be a Dina emoji as well. So don't you worry. I've seen a lot of people wanting that Dina emoji and the Dina show. So Dina and I are discussing it. We're going to figure it out. We don't do 2-finger salutes when Michael Cohen isn't there, but I do a fist bump, and I fist bump Dina Dahl for being a great co-host and filling in for Michael Cohen. I also give a fist bump, one fist bump to Michael Cohen as well. I definitely understand and appreciate him not doing this show. It's unfair that that his livelihood right now is put on pause as a result of something where he's not even on trial. And he can't be here. And, I know Michael Cohen must want to be able to share how he feels. And he's not under any gag order, but he's decided he's not going to be saying anything until this trial is over. I respect that. I support that. But I definitely miss him as well. Dina, thank you. Thank you to the Beatdown Brigaders. If you want to also support this show, a few ways to do that. Hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. It's free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the Mea Culpa podcast by Michael Cohen. Make sure you subscribe to the Mea Culpa Blue. If you see a Mea Culpa Red, you don't need to subscribe to that one. Just do the Mea Culpa Blue. Subscribe to Political Beatdown wherever you get audio podcasts. That helps with our algorithm here as well. And then if you want to support the show, when Cohen gets back, we're going to do a Zoom meeting with all of the Brigaders who are members of our Patreon. And that is a way to help. We don't have outside investors here at the network or on the show. So by becoming a member of patreon.com/political beatdown, you get to meet Michael Cohen and I. You're going to get to meet him as soon as he comes back, also on one of our exclusive Zoom meetings. And it helps with the show. It helps fund the show. It helps fund the network. So patreon.com/political beatdown. Dina, thank you so much. As always, we so appreciate you.
Thank you.
And thank you all the Beatdown Brigaders. We'll see you next week. Remember, tonight, The show with my brothers goes live at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. The live show with my brothers. Make sure you tune in for the Midas Touch podcast, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Y'all for watching. Wonderful one.